His Honor, the Lieutenant Governor requests the members of the Legislative Assembly in this chamber.
Mr. Chairman, I move that Honorable David Graham do take the chair of this House as Speaker. Premiers move that Honorable Daniel Graham do take the chair of this House as Speaker.
I second the motion.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
His Honor the Speaker.
I wish to return my humble acknowledgement to the House for the great honor you have been pleased to confer on me to be your Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, His Honor, the Lieutenant Governor, Francis of Vaughan, desires admittance to this honorable House.
I am going to read his honor.
His Honor, the Lieutenant Governor.
Mr. Speaker, and members of the Legislative Assembly, on this, the first session of the 11th General Assembly of this House, I extend a most cordial welcome to all here present. It is my sincere wish that your deliberations will be fruitful and that all members on both sides will work with diligence and integrity. All elected members must work for the further development of Nova Scotia. At the same time, they must perform to the best of their abilities for their electorate. During this session, my ministers will bring forth measures for your consideration. It is hoped that these will help alleviate some of the problems of the difficult times in which we live. This session of the House promises to be difficult, but challenging and exciting due to the fact that it will be operating under a minority government. For this reason, I urge you to put aside partisan politics and work for the greater good of the electorate. Let us work together and strive for a better life for all Nova Scotians. Pendant cette journée, de la législation sera présentée pour le jugement de l'Assemblée. Je demande à chaque membre de considérer l'importance du procès législatif et de prendre les mesures convenables pour donner une vue positive au futur. Due to the escalating cost of education, it has become necessary for this government to take a closer look at the students of Inverness County and the province in general. We feel that many of them will be deprived of higher education simply because they cannot afford it. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, we intend to propose more funding for student loans. It is hoped that all of those who are able will have the opportunity to further their education. As well, Mr. Speaker, our government will be looking closely at the fisheries. We intend to lift some of the quotas previously imposed because we feel that they are causing unnecessary hardship on too many people. Standardized testing, Mr. Speaker, has been on the minds of many Nova Scotians. It has become apparent that rural areas have been unjustly criticized, so it is our intent to study this problem and its ramifications. Furthermore, Mr. Speaker, we will be taking a serious look at the licensing process for youth drivers. Too many times our youth have been involved in either serious or fatal accidents, and it is past time to consider some changes. Mr. Speaker and members of the Assembly, we urge you to listen carefully and work along with this government in order to make Nova Scotia a province of which we can all be proud. In the language of Gael, I say to you, Bí sin a brún, múrudan, glé, éma, unwa sha, agus, hamiach, iri, erson, do, foracras, hamia, docas, bia, anwa, gio, erson, ahule, dunye. Mr. Speaker, to the above mentioned and other important matters which will appear in this first session of the 11th Legislative Assembly, I ask for your full attention and deep consideration. May this day prove to be a rewarding experience for you all. Thank you. Merci. Tapa Liebe.
I'd like to take this opportunity before we go on with our Parliament to introduce our Lieutenant Governor in his other role, and perhaps I'd like to say a few words before we go on with the formalities. At this point in time, I'd like to introduce the Member of Parliament for Cape Breton Highlands Council, Francis Lamont.
Dalche, Guiv, Bull.
How's that?
All the Gaelic I can muster.
It's in order.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I want to welcome members of the Legislative Assembly and the parents, friends, and other students and guests here this evening to the Judy Cregnish Model Parliament. And it's a pleasure for me to be back in Judy and back again to your Model Parliament to participate in what is really it's always an interesting exercise in democracy and an opportunity for all of us in our communities to see close to home how our democracy works. It's obviously an interesting time to be having a model parliament here with the provincial election underway, and all minds on politics as you drive around the county. You see the signs everywhere. Everybody's conscious of the fact that there will be an election on the 25th of May, and all of you who are participating in the legislature have a sense of immediacy of the fact that you are doing what the real elected members of the Legislative Assembly will be doing once they are elected. And you've had your own election, I understand, and you've had your you've elected your legislature, and I understand that of course that you have a minority government. I don't know if that's what we're going to see after May 25th in Nova Scotia or after the federal election in Ottawa. Who knows? But certainly you'll experience it just by working through the mechanics of a minority legislature, what parliamentarians and members of the Legislative Assembly will go through if they have that situation. And one of the great things about trying this exercise out of model parliaments is the chance to sort of be there firsthand experience of what it's like to be a politician, what it's like to be a legislature. And there's no better way to learn about it than to actually work through the mechanics, including this first bit of the speech from the throne and all of the little procedural things, because all of those little aspects of Parliament have a long tradition, and all those aspects of Parliament are very important to the way in which our democracy functions. And when I go to Ottawa and sit in the House of Commons, I'm always in awe of the fact that we're sitting here. We have these long traditions that has resulted in the way in which the House of Commons is set up, and the way in which we have our debates, and then the way in which we have our parliamentary procedure, and all of the other interesting little traditions which you see expressed in our system. So the best way to do it is to practice and to have a model parliament like this, and to see how the rules work. And you probably will, some of you, develop an interest for politics. I hope you do, because there is a great deal of it's a real challenge to be in this career, in this profession, and I hope that many of you will find that in one way or another you'll want to participate in politics as you grow older. I can say, having worked at it for 4 years, that the challenge has not grown out of it. It's actually more interesting and more fascinating than ever. And one of the things that has made it an interesting experience for me has been working with Danny Graham over the last 4 years. And I can say from working with Danny that he has been a real credit as your member, as your MLA in Inverness South, and he has you can feel justly proud here in Judith for having sent Danny to Halifax as the MLA, and to have him as part of your community and somebody that you can learn from and that you can draw inspiration from. So I just want to say that about Danny, because as you know, they had the redistribution, and Danny can't continue to represent you, at least not for the moment. And so I won't speak any longer, because I know that you're anxious, the parents are anxious to see their sons and daughters get right into the thick of debate, and that's what you're going to do as soon as your speaker gives the word, and the debate will start, and I know it'll be a very interesting evening. So I want to thank you once again for the invitation to participate in this model parliament and to be your lieutenant governor. Thank you very much.
This evening we have a former member of Parliament and Speaker, I send my regrets to your model parliament that I cannot attend due to prior commitments. I am sure it will prove both rewarding and educational for all those participating. Sincerely, Ed McDonald, Warden in Inverness County. Dear friends, thank you for the invitation to attend the 1993 session of Model Parliament at your school. I regret that I will be unable to attend due to unforeseen circumstances. I congratulate you on your continued effort and know that you will achieve the success that you have displayed in the past. I extend best wishes and good luck to all students involved in this project. Sincerely, Charles McCarthy, MLA, Inverness North. Now, at this point in time, I would like to ask all the members of the House, one at a time, to please rise and introduce yourselves.
Eileen Grain, Premier, Hillsdale. Lauren McCool, Minister of Education of the William.
Robert McDonald, Minister of Health, for the Good West.
Minister of Fisheries, Prairies and Chickasaw.
Jeff Campbell, Minister of Tourism and Culture, Civic Central West.
Carrie Ellen Gray, Minister of Finance, Chickasaw.
Aaron McDonald, River Pond.
Amy McCaffrey, Minister of Environment and Water Conservation. William Martin, of the North.
Matt Moore, Aboriginal Pond.
Gerard McDonald, Lower Lawn.
Ken Chisholm, Minister of Economic Development, Lower Joe Pond.
Desmond Kiss, still Civic Center.
Michelle Mules, Upper Southwest. Lindsay James, Lower Jigsaw. Bradley Charles, 1.4. Juan Fong, Minister of Transportation, 1.7.
Matthew Cotton, North Hillsdale.
Campbell, Laura Longfellow. Chris Brock, 1.6.
Alan Brown, North Virginia Road.
Carmen, Civic Central.
Jimmy Walker, Leader of the Opposition, Craig's Beach.
John McGinnis, Craig's Lookout.
Nancy Kennedy, Chickasaw. Tracy McCaffrey, Creedmoor. David Clay, 1.3. David Knowles, Debbie Vaughn, 1.4. Katie Burnside, 1.4. Sean Brennan, Troy Thomas.
Corey Neal, Curtis Jones. Steve McDonald, for the Good.
Michael Chisholm, 1 mic.
Amanda Phillips, leader of the Community Center. Helen McDonald, for the East. Sherry Clayton, for the Central. Lauren McDonald, for the North. Lindsay McDonald, for the Central.
Calvin McDonald, Charlotte. Garrett Rachel, Missouri. Tom McClellan, 1.6. McRae, Greater Central.
Mark Proctor, Troy South.
I now ask that the Lieutenant Governor be escorted to the gallery. Debate, throne speech. The chair will now recognize the Premier.
Mr. Speaker, we have presented our plans for the future in the throne speech. We think we have, to the best of our ability, presented policy that will create a promising future for all Nova Scotians. Mr. Speaker, during this session today, my ministers and I have many issues to propose which, to our conviction, will help alleviate some of the dilemmas we face in these trying times in which we live. Mr. Speaker, students of Nova Scotia are very concerned with education. In these difficult times, in most cases, there's a need for a very high education in order to find employment. Due to the increasing cost of education, many can't pursue the route of higher education. To pursue their dreams, due to the harsh reality of lack of money. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, we intend to propose more funding for student loans, so that everyone has a chance to further their education and in turn mirrored their grasp of their visions. Visions, Mr. Speaker, which will better Nova Scotia. Also, Mr. Speaker, the fishing industry is vital to Nova Scotia's economy. Our financial situation regarding the fishing industry is flailing, and as a result, certain fishing quotas should be reduced. Mr. Speaker, these fishing quotas all add to the poor economic conditions, as my Minister of Fisheries will convey. Mr. Speaker, standardized testing is also a major concern. We believe this form of testing is unbalanced and puts inappropriate emphasis on areas of study which are much needed for a literal society. Also, Mr. Speaker, as pointed out in the speech from the throne, we are at a disadvantage by running these tests due to the many small schools in our district. This will be displayed in greater detail in the speech for this bill. Mr. Speaker, it's preposterous to think that a 16-year-old is not mature enough to operate a vehicle. We believe that if 16-year-olds are able and knowledgeable enough to pass the driving test, they should be given permission to travel our highways. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, we're taking a closer look at the licensing process. I know, Mr. Speaker, the opposition will be very critical, but it is up to them to come up with better policy and not just give minutes, Mr. Speaker.
Chair will now recognize the Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, it sounds to me like the Liberals are planning on going back to school. 2 out of the 3 government bills have to do with education. They tell us that an act to bring about changes in the student loan, eliminating the involvement of parents, and an act eliminating the provincial standardized testing. Now, Mr. Speaker, my party agrees that these bills are important, but not nearly as important as the legislation to be introduced by the opposition. Mr. Speaker, the Liberal government has failed to bring up important bills like environmental cleanup or ideas in changing the funding formula for Inverness District schools. Mr. Speaker, the 2 other government bills brought up are an act requesting the elimination of fishing quotas and an act requesting the elimination of graduated licensing. Now, I have noticed that these 2 bills are both unneeded and deal somewhat with the judiciary where the Liberals dominate. The Liberal government has failed to seek help from areas like Craignish or Troy. Mr. Speaker, in Nova Scotia today, we all know that there is a shortage of jobs. Yet the Liberal government bills will only give the people of Nova Scotia a few jobs. This throne speech does not even mention the loss of jobs in Nova Scotia, like in the fisheries. The government is doing nothing to help these people, while we, the New Democratic Party, are helping the people with our bill entitled an act requesting changes to the funding formula for Inverness District schools. This bill will indeed help the young people of Nova Scotia obtain their education. Mr. Speaker, the government has failed to realize what is best for the future of Nova Scotia. It is obvious that we are all in for another session where little will be achieved or accomplished. Mr. Speaker, I will shortly be calling for a vote of non-confidence in this government.
The Honourable Leader of the Progressive Conservative Party.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to welcome all here today. To the government, I say welcome. Enjoy your stay, for short-lived it will be. It must appear obvious to all that even the government expects defeat. Why else would so little effort be put into the throne speech? It appears that once again, the people in this province are destined to suffer. Where is the government's commitment to increasing employment or bettering our healthcare system? Instead, they focus on meaningless issues such as standardized testing and the driving age.
And education quotas.
They plan to destroy the environment by eliminating fish quotas. Without a doubt, the people of this province are ready for a change, and change will come as soon as this government will go down with all its broken promises. When that day comes, we, the PC Party, will be the clear alternative for the next government in Nova Scotia.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
I will now call for a vote of non-confidence in this government.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
It has been moved by the honorable leader of the official opposition, seconded by the member from Judy South, that this government has lost the confidence of the House. All in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, nay?
Nay.
Nays have it. Next order of business, the introduction of bills. Call upon the government to introduce their first bill. Honorable Minister of Education.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move, seconded by my Honorable Prime Minister of Finance, for leave to introduce Bill number C-20 entitled An Act Providing More Government Funding for Student Loans.
The honorable member for Upper River Dennis, Minister of Education, move the bill you've just heard, seconded by the Minister of Finance. The pleasure of the House, these members have leave to introduce this bill.
Agreed. Mr. Speaker, I move that Bill number C-20 now be read a third time. Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
Moved by the Minister of Education, seconded by the Minister of Finance. The said bill be now read a first time. Pleasure of the House to adopt this motion.
Bill number C-20, an act providing more government funding for student loans.
Pleasure will bill be read the second time.
Now.
I now call on the Minister of Education to begin this debate.
Mr. Speaker, many graduating students plan on going on to a secondary education, and they may strive for good grades in order to be accepted into a good college. However, Mr. Speaker, getting the money to go is often a very big problem for many students. Going to further their education is their own choice. However, student aid legislation states that responsibility for the cost of secondary education of the student remains primarily with the parents. Why should the students have to not only depend upon their parents for school funding through elementary and high school, but college as well? Mr. Speaker, parents with more than one child who is or will be attending college do not possibly have the means to support them all through their college years, no matter how much money the parents may make per year. More money must be provided for student loans so that they can be made more accessible to those in need. Sure, students can get a summer or part-time job, but please, Mr. Speaker, with the cost of even 1 year of college, students and parents when combined won't even be enough. If the student's parents make over a certain amount of earnings per year, the student is denied to request a loan and is forced to totally dependent upon his or her parents. I'm not saying, Mr. Speaker, the parents should not contribute to their child's education. I'm simply stating that there must be some changes made so that the student can become more dependent upon him or herself. Mr. Speaker, we the government strongly suggest that a child's education is very important, especially in this day and age. However, Mr. Speaker, if this bill does not pass, we will be denying the student his or her rightful education. Basically, what it boils down to, Mr. Speaker, is that if parents don't make enough money, the child can't go to college. And if the parents make too much money, they're forced to give what money they have to pay for their child's college funds. Giving out $10,000 for 1 year is difficult, especially when you have other expenses. If more funding were provided, many of our younger generations will have a better chance of going to college or university and making a life for themselves. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, for the sake of generations to come, this bill should, without a doubt, be passed.
Honorable Member Judy South.
Mr. Speaker, we have to provide more government funding for student loans is preposterous. It is absurd to think, Mr. Speaker, that student loans can be more easily attained. Mr. Speaker, Do you not think formulating further jobs for the youth would be more serviceable to them and to the community? We don't want to put anybody in debt, do we? So instead of students applying for student loans, give them jobs, Mr. Speaker. Give them knowledge by doing these jobs. Please, they don't need student loans. Just take a look at how far student loans put you in debt. After 4 years, each year costing $10,000, for 4 years, that's $40,000, Mr. Speaker. For most people, 4 years is not even half their career. And for the rest of their lives, they have to pay back this huge amount of money. But Mr. Speaker, the solution is only too simple. If you were to give more jobs to the youth, then they could save money, and they could pay their own way. My party and I think this is only sensible not to pass this bill, because it is indeed not beneficial to anyone. Mr. Speaker, it is obvious that this bill is not even disputable. In your decision, please take into consideration all the detrimental points that I have spoken about. I'd also like to say, if children are that interested in furthering their education, then they would get a job in grade 10, which is the average age students are getting jobs these days. And, Mr. Speaker, if they are indeed truly interested in going on to post-secondary education, they would save their money and would not need a student loan. In closing, I'd just like to say, create jobs, not debt. Mr. Speaker, this bill should definitely not be passed.
The Honourable Member for Shore Road.
Mr. Speaker, we want to know where the money for increased loans is coming from. The government is all tied up right now in debt with mining, fishing, the building of highways, and with recreation parks. The government can't afford to increase student loans when we need to spend on education. I read recently in a magazine that almost 60% of students who get loans have a hard time paying back because of unemployment. We believe that students should be responsible enough to get jobs and pay their own way instead of relying on government and the taxpayers
What kind of job are you going to get?
every time they need money. Students who learn how to become independent early will have an easier time in life when they get older. Also, students who get loans may forget payments, resulting in a default, meaning that as they get older, they need money for bigger things like a house, maybe refused for financial assistance. Mr. Speaker, for these reasons, we believe that it will be in the best interest of the House if the bill is not passed.
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I listened long and clear, but heard very few arguments of substance from the opposition against this bill. My job is made quite simple today then, as my honourable friend, the Minister of Education, has already made several valid points regarding the importance of this bill. As Finance Minister, I could of course give explanations on how the government is planning on funding this bill, as it is not the topic of debate at this moment, a lot of details will be disclosed at a later date.
Order.
I will, however, say that the government will invest enough money to support other necessities. One such necessity would definitely be the need for more student loans.
Order.
It will be disclosed at a later date. As statistics have shown, approximately 30% of graduating classes go without secondary education because of insufficient funding. If students are not given the opportunity of secondary education, they will never receive jobs and they will never be qualified. I guarantee you, the government will be supporting these same students in the form of welfare in the years to come. A student loan costs the government nothing, as this just that, a loan. It would, of course, be paid back in the future, with interest too, I might add. Welfare costs the government $25,000 per person per year, and we will never see this money again. Mr. Speaker, we've given the opposition a choice. Either continue with present laws and end up supporting more people on welfare in the future, or pass this bill and give students a chance for secondary education and employment, which would definitely be a benefit to the province. We've obviously been researching this for a long time. Our arguments are not just theories, but are proven, valid facts. Help keep Nova Scotian students, including your own children or grandchildren, educated.
help keep our future rich and employed. Vote to pass Bill number C.
My understanding that the House has given unanimous consent for a recorded vote. All in favor, please raise your hand. Clerk, please count. Count 3 minus, raise your hand, please. Honorable Leader Andy Pease, opposition. You have a motion to introduce? Introduced by the Honorable Member from Craigmore.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move, seconded by my honorable friend from Twelve Falls, to leave to introduce bill number 332, entitled An Act requesting additional funding for environmental cleanup of the Troy area.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
This bill has been moved and seconded. Question of the House, these members have legally introduced the bill this time.
Agreed.
Mr. Speaker, I move that bill B32 be now read for the first time.
Mr. Speaker, we put forth this bill requesting additional funding for the cleanup in the Troy area. Oh, Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
Order, please. No talking across the floor, and I would advise the honorable member to ignore the rabbit tracks from the side of the House. The bill is an act requesting additional funding for environmental cleanup in the Troy area.
Mr. Speaker, our environment is in dire straits, and the garbage in Troy is not helping. Driving along the road, we just happened to look into the ditch and find pop bottles, papers, and pop cans. How revolting. You know the place where people stop to get water from the pipe? Well, who would want to get out with their cars when there is such a stench?
A lot of people do.
The source of the stench is the open sewer system, which must get immediate attention. Mr. Speaker, during the summer, tourists come to Cape Breton, and when they drive through Troy, this is what they see and smell. How can we expect anyone to even come back? Students would be hired to clean up the ditches and gather recyclable materials from the dump. They would be paid and given unemployment stamps. For the open sewers, we would get the Scott Septic Company to build a closed sewer that will eliminate the problem. All the garbage will be shipped to the nearest recycling plant. The cost will be taken care of by 7% of the taxes to be placed on cigarettes. Mr. Speaker, I feel that this bill would give employment to students and help our environment. So, Mr. Speaker, I feel that Bill B32 be passed for the benefit of all.
Are there any other speakers? Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, the opposition are completely and outrageously confused with their facts on environmental issues surrounding this area. Our own legal aid research and have been looking into this subject for some time now. According to the latest reports, Troy doesn't need to be cleaned up at all. Sure, there's a few pop bottles in ditches and a few papers lying on the ground. But what's the difference between this and Troy and garbage and other times across the college? Our research
something of such sort, money should not be given, should not be spent in such a tiny community. If we do it for one community, then it has to do it for the other hundreds of communities in Nova Scotia. And for what? Listening to the member from Craigmore, she talks about open sewage lines. Well, I maintain, Mr. Speaker, that this is of individual concern, not the government. Pop bottles and garbage and ditches are also a private concern. Many of Troy's citizens would be made aware that it is their responsibility to keep the community clean, and problems and complaints would not arise at all. Mr. Speaker, we just can't pass this bill. We just can't hand money over to an individual company, to a community, when we as a government are responsible for the entire of Nova Scotia. An unjustified passing of this bill would be utterly ridiculous.
The honourable member for Troy Central.
Mr. Speaker, is this really what the government should be spending their money on? What would this environmental cleanup of the Troy area include? Taking up the garbage from ditches. Now, Mr. Speaker, I'm not saying that this is not important, because I believe that we should keep our communities clean and take care of our environment. But this work can be done on a volunteer basis. Mr. Speaker, there is no need for the government to spend money to create jobs that are not needed, because in fact there are already individuals cleaning up the area now. Organizations such as the Kingsmen are happy and willing to take a day and to ride their vehicles to go around and clean up the area, just like what students at JCHS are doing next week. Why even owners of land in the Troy area keep their lawns and ditches clean and looking good all year round. This bill that the NDP is suggesting is nothing but a make-work project so that people employed can work 10 weeks and collect unemployment insurance. Is this what you want? We have the power to provide jobs for these people, but we must find more stable ways of creating these jobs. Where would or could we stop if we allowed this bill to pass? Most of the unemployed people would be expecting the government to hand over any job so that they can work. I don't want to give them just any job. I want them to be secure and able to provide for their families. Mr. Speaker, I would like to say, off the topic of employment, that we should be more focused on where this money of environmental cleanup should go. Industries are my concern. We should work hard to clean up industries and factories that may pollute air and water. When we see that everything is running smoothly, then perhaps we can talk about this bill again. For now, however, I believe that it would be in our best interest that we not allow this bill to pass. Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, we put forth...
Honourable member for Troy.
Mr. Speaker, we put forth this
Frills.
bill...
Hall. Okay. Troy Hall. No frills.
Mr. Speaker, we put forth this bill for cleaning up the area. Because we have a chance to save the natural wonder of the area. We have a wonderful array of wildlife in the local area. They are being threatened by the garbage being dumped and left lying around. The beaches are sanctuaries for many species of birds, including our popular bald eagles. The garbage left in the beaches threatens these majestic birds.
Order, please.
We must take responsibility for our waste. We must do it for the sake of saving nature.
Well, do it yourself.
But it doesn't end at the beaches. Broken down cars, refrigerators, stoves, and an assortment of other items are being dumped and left on roads and piled up in backyards. Some may
Order,
say they
please.
have
I
the right
remind
to do what they
honourable
want on
members
their own
that
property,
if they
but this
don't cease to interrupt, excuse me, Speaker, they will be escorted to the chambers by the Sergeant Aaron.
Some may say that they may have the right to do what they want on their own property, but this cannot apply when such activity affects other people or the wildlife in the area. Rusting metals being absorbed into the water table is one of the largest concerns. Some sites are set up to deal with these types of problems, and scrap metal works against it. If the garbage were taken to the dump site, the scrap metal collected together and a scrap metal company could remove the metal to their own facilities. This would leave the Troy district cleaner and a more healthy place for both man and animal. And think about the summer jobs that would be created. This is a bill that will allow the people of Troy to grow and prosper, save a wildlife haven, and help clean up Troy.
But all, Minister of Education.
Mr. Speaker, the arguments I have heard from the opposition have not convinced me that giving up money for the cleanup of Troy area is reasonable and in great need. As my colleague, the Minister of Finance, has stated, unless there are life-threatening hazards or considerable environmental problems to be found, funding of the project is not especially necessary. Mr. Speaker, these residents of Troy know the hazards of polluting their environment. However, they say whenever they are walking or driving down the road, they see garbage along the road or in the ditches, and the only thing they seem to be doing about it is complaining, when they could be trying to keep the community clean themselves by picking up the garbage they see. I'm sure, Mr. Speaker, if they had enough pride in their community, each person living in Troy will clean up around their own area, along the ditches and roadsides every once in a while. Therefore, there would be no need to ask for funding for a cleanup of the Troy area. Aside from that point, Mr. Speaker, the Department of Highways clean up the roadsides and ditches, usually every spring or summer. Why fund this cleanup when there are people who do it every summer or spring for employment, or when the citizens of Troy can all get together and do it themselves? Mr. Speaker, as you can see from what I and the Minister of Finance have said, funding for this project is absurd when there are so many other ways of cleaning up the Troy area without the need of government funding. Mr. Speaker, if the government wants to spend their money wisely and save as much as possible, this bill should definitely not.
Honorable members, ready for the question? All in favor of passage of this bill, please raise your hand. All in favor of the passage of the bill? Against? Please raise your hand.
Against, 34 for.
There's the bill passed. 34 for, 15 against. Is that what the numbers? Or what? The other way around. Okay, the bill has been defeated. Call now for the introduction of the second government. Minister of Fisheries.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move, second by my honorable friend from Little Winter Ponds, for leave to introduce the Bill A-14, entitled An Act Respecting the Elimination of Fishing Quotas.
That's been moved and seconded. This bill respecting fishing quotas introduced. The lead members have leave to introduce this bill at this time.
Mr. Speaker, I move that Bill A-14 now be read for first time.
Second, please.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
Moved by the Minister of Fisheries, seconded by a member from Little Jilly Pond. The said bill be now read the first time. It's the pleasure of the House to adopt this motion.
Bill A-14 is not requesting the elimination of the fishing quotas.
When shall this bill be read the second time?
Right now.
I now call on the Minister of Fisheries.
Mr. Speaker, it is my duty to do what is best for the people of this province involved in the fishing industry. Mr. Speaker, the opposition has it in their heads that the almighty quota will solve the problems facing this primary industry. I suggest they do it again. The quota is a set number, amount, or portion. That's once to set up a quota, limiting the number of fish a person can catch. This can be done in any of numerous ways, better ways. Mr. Speaker, the opposition may not like to hear this, but quotas are not the answer to depleting fish stocks. The government proposes that limitations and regulations be put on the number of nets and traps a person is allowed to set. Also, size regulations will be kept in place. Limitations will not be put on the actual amount of fish that a fisherman can catch. Mr. Speaker, it is a great temptation to many fishermen to have a day's catch lying on the fishing boat floor. In other words, too many fish for some opposition quota. How must hurt some fishermen to throw back the exact fish that they make their livelihood. If quotas are eliminated, this unfortunate scene would soon follow. Fishermen would set the limited amount of number of nets and traps and take to shore all of the fish they catch that meets regulation size. The ones that don't meet regulation size will have a chance to grow and reproduce, resulting in a growth of fish stocks. The government will take into account the number of licenses and then proceed to limit the number of fishing gear in order to keep the fish stocks on the rise. Mr. Speaker, it is my knowledge that the people do not like to hear any talk of eliminating fish quotas. But I would like to think the people of this province would realize that the newly proposed regulations and limitations, fish stocks will never fall again. What we have proposed today will achieve more than any opposition fish quota would ever hope to achieve. Mr. Speaker, in closing, I would like to give my worthy opposition something to think about. I think it rather odd that the opposition would take such a great liking to fish quotas, and yet since they have been introduced, our fish stocks have been depleted. Mr. Speaker, it is imperative that this bill gets passed today.
The honourable member for Village Central.
Mr. Speaker, fellow colleagues, removal quotas will do nothing but harm in my opinion. It will lead to the depletion of the sea, and eventually there will be no fish to catch, and there will be a lot of people no quotas. By removing the quotas, it will cost less in revenue, causing the price to be reduced because of the abundance of fish. This would mean that fishermen will be doing a lot of extra work and not getting paid for it. Whereas if the quotas remain, the market will remain stable and profitable. History has shown that such liberal thinking, I stress liberal thinking, has led to mismanagement of species. There is now no sense in removal quotas. All you intend to do is move the quotas, set number, amount, or partial. You want to move them from the net, from the fish right to the net and the equipment.
Something's got to change.
You want to change the number of licenses, which would leave people unemployed. You want limitations on the number of nets. By doing this, you are putting limitations on the amount of fish, but you are doing it indirectly through the traps and the net. Some of these fishermen won't be measuring each fish to see if they're regulation size, and they will end up taking away the chance they have to grow and reproduce. Mr. Speaker, Bill 814 should definitely not pass the House.
The honourable member for Craignish Mountain.
Mr. Speaker, this bill is disgraceful. Fishing quotas are influential to all Nova Scotians. The fish stocks are depleted enough as it is now. Mr. Speaker, the abolition of fishing quotas is only going to enhance the problem. The fisheries is one of our natural resources. We must preserve and protect it. If we are going to increase employment, we do not abuse resources for jobs to rely on. Mr. Speaker, the immediate jobs this bill will generate are only going to be lost in the future. What will we do then? Our natural resources gone and thousands unemployed. A tough question that will have to be answered if Bill 814 is passed. Mr. Speaker, fishing has been a significant part of our past. Let's make sure it is a prominent factor in Nova Scotia's future. This bill should definitely not be passed, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I'm now going to follow up and ask my honorable friend Redmond, previously pointed out in Bill 814. The request of eliminating fishing quotas will be, by all means, beneficial to fishermen. Rather than the government or bureaucrats setting quotas, fishermen will be eligible to operate their own business. The money being handed out from the fishing industry is strictly federal money. Fishermen would have a major input to regulating the industry. Mr. Speaker, at the present time, the government is doing decision-making. Such a decision made by Ottawa, but there isn't going to be any assistance given to the fishing industry unless there's going to be some long-term changes. This has a negative effect on the operation of the industry due government's judgment. Mr. Speaker, by eliminating quotas, fishermen will do a better job operating their own business. With quotas existing today, it only gives the fishermen the idea to catch more than before. Without restrictions, quotas, fishermen will form their own organization and fish below the maximum limit in order to maintain the industry operating properly. Fishermen will focus more on underutilized species, which will be harvested. Therefore, a completion of popular species stock will not occur in the marketplace. The harvesting of underutilized species to keep fish plants, which are due to close, operating, providing jobs to keep the community close-knit. It's high time fishermen, especially in coastal rural communities, take a stand in operating and controlling their business. Neglect the government and their present quota system, the fishing industry will disappear, like our post office and rural schools. So, Mr. Speaker, the Belfast will bond and work together to ensure this industry will continue for generations to come. In closing, Mr. Speaker, some fishermen belonging to the Maritime Fishermen's Union believe the situation is so bleak due to the problems arising because of quotas that the only recourse is to eliminate quotas. Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I was wondering if the Minister of Fisheries would entertain questions?
Will the honorable member entertain questions?
No.
The honorable member from Upper Judith, South, West.
Mr. Speaker, my honorable friend, the Minister of Fisheries, I stated in case I believe this bill the points that make the passage of this bill possible. The Minister said that with the amount of traps the same, fish size regulations the same, all it comes down to is fisherman's skill. Let's reward these worthy fishermen and have this bill passed.
The honorable member from Lower Judith, South.
Mr. Speaker, my honorable colleagues have pointed out how this bill would allow for the growth of fish stocks as well as an increase in fishermen's catch. It seems obvious to me that this is a great improvement of the current quota system. Denying Bill 814 would be a great injustice.
Ready for the question? All in favor of the bill now being passed, raise your hand, please. Clerk, please count. Opposed? Introducer of the second opposition bill. The honorable member for Judith East.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move, seconded by my honorable friend, member from River Dennis, for leave to introduce bill number C-14, entitled An Act Providing for Increased Student Employment in the Undercredited Area.
Moved and seconded, for leave to introduce this bill. Is it the pleasure of the House at this time to have this bill introduced?
Agreed. Mr. Speaker, I move that bill number C-14 be now read the first time. Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
Moved by the honorable member from Judith East, seconded by the member from River Dennis. This bill be now read the first time. Pleasure of the House to adopt this motion. When shall this go ahead? Clerk?
Bill number C-14, an act providing for increased student employment in the undercredited area.
When shall this bill be read a second time? Now call on the member from Judith East.
Mr. Speaker, in this day and age, we all know how scarce work is. Not only is it difficult for adults to find jobs, but also for students. We want to change that. Nowadays, there's
many bright young people graduating from high school with very respectable marks who want to further their education. However, many of them are unable to do so because they don't have enough money. Mr. Speaker, tell me, is this what we want? To deprive our students of a better education and a better life? Certainly not. Therefore, we would like more work for students. What work is there, you ask? Well, we figure the replanting of trees is an excellent idea. Not only will this provide employment for our young people, but it should also help our quickly deteriorating environment. Young people are usually aware of the terrible state our environment is in and want to do something about it. Therefore, we feel there is interest in this line of work. I hope the reasons stated and ideas brought up will convince all of you today that there certainly should be more student employment in the Greater Craignish area. Mr. Speaker, this bill should definitely pass the House.
Honorable member from Lower Long Point.
Mr. Speaker, Bill C-14, which the Progressive Conservatives have brought up, indeed must pass the House today. It must not, however, pass away my honorable opponent as president. It is obvious that the Judea Craignish area needs more jobs for its students, especially those who wish to further their education. There are many other things that also should be done around this area to improve its productivity. What I have done, Mr. Speaker, is put the need of the students for jobs and the needs of the community together to eliminate many problems with one shot. First of all, the highways and back roads in this area are an absolute disaster, bringing a great deal of work, and who better to help out than the students in the area. Students can be trained to help keep traffic going, while others can be trained with the actual paving of the roads. Of course, the students won't be using any heavy machinery. They may help in shoveling gravel, clearing away old brush and asphalt, and acting as gophers for the senior workers on the highways. With the improvement of our highways, there's many jobs for students. Other things that may come out of the improved highways are improved tourism, because more people will travel on better roads, and more tourists will cause a greater amount of money to be poured into the community, because they will be buying up goods and services as they pass through. Another way of creating jobs in the Judea Craignish area, Mr. Speaker, is through an environmental committee, which should be set up in Judea. Students could be funded by the government to help keep the area clean, from cleaning up garbage, beer bottles, and trash from along the side of the road, to cleaning up the small areas in the community which have been infested with trash, such as old cars, furniture, bottles, and so on. Beaches could also use a good cleaning, old lobster traps, road, plastic containers, and even rubber tires that are the beaches of Judea Craignish. Students in Judea have already shown initiative in environmental awareness by setting up a couple of compost bins in the school. Again, with the cleaned up environment, more tourists will be attracted to the region to enjoy the outdoors, which will be kept exceptionally clean. As for my opponent's idea of replanting trees, it is a good idea, but not for a community such as Judea Craignish. Where would you plant new trees? Isn't there enough trees around here already? And even if you were to find some field to plant the trees, how long would it take students to plant them? I don't imagine it would take very long. Students wouldn't make very much, and their jobs wouldn't last very long. Mr. Speaker,
Order, please. You ready for the question? More speakers on this? Oh, the Honorable Minister of Economic Development.
Mr. Speaker, the bill proposed today, Bill C-14, involving more student employment in the Judea Craignish area, is a necessity for the survival of our youth post-secondary education. In today's society, the expense for college and university is very high, and around here, many parents have possibly 2 children attending college at the same time. It is hard to provide enough money to support this, plus other expenses. Mr. Speaker, things must change, and they must change now. Not only do students need the aid of student loans, in which we fought to increase earlier today, but they also need student employment. They need help in paying for the future. As my honorable colleague mentioned, our roadways need fixing. There are jobs involved in fixing roads in which students can do, such as legs and shoveling asphalt. More grants could be given and should be given in areas such as recreation and cleanup of the environment. In recreation, students could help coach sports, for example, baseball and soccer. As far as the cleanup goes, there's much garbage in the ditches and all along the shores of Route 19. Mr. Speaker, this is only a few jobs of the many that students are capable of doing. Not only do these jobs provide students with income, but also a chance to post-secondary education and the basic work experience. Student employment also builds good, clean character. Mr. Speaker, and this is what Nova Scotia is built on. Mr. Speaker, let's give our students the hope of a bright future, the future involving education needed to compete in today's society.
The honorable member for Pregnant.
Mr. Speaker, when we were introducing our bill on the cleanup for the environment in Troy, the government said that it should be done all voluntarily, and now two other members are saying that we should create jobs for cleaning up the environment, for cleaning up the ditches. So, because they got their facts all backwards.
What's this particular bill?
There's a contradiction, because of the contradiction in the government deal, this bill
It's
should
two
be
different
passed.
bills. It's a contradiction.
Order.
Well, first they're saying, let's do it all voluntarily, and now they're saying, clean it up. They got their jobs
Did you
for it.
listen to the?
So, bill's coming back.
Are you ready for the question? We have another speaker, the leader of the PC party. Honorable member for Pregnant.
Mr. Speaker, this bill is an important step in stabilizing the future of our youth. In order for students to further their education, jobs must be provided for them. By planting trees, we will ensure a better environment for our children and at the same time give youth a chance to receive the education they deserve. As our party already stated, volunteers could help clean the ditches and so on, instead of the government wasting money on make-work jobs. As for planting trees, we think that there are plenty of areas where trees can be planted and should. It can greatly help our environment and at the same time the income of our students. For these reasons, and those presented by my colleagues, I strongly believe that Bill number C-14 should be passed.
Ready for the question? All in favor of this bill being passed, please raise your right hand. All in favor of the bill being passed. First, please come. Opposed? I declare the bill passed. At this point in time, we're going to have a short recess and we'll come back to the introduction of the bill.
There are coffee and donuts outside for everyone and juice for the parliamentarians. Right outside the hall. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move, seconded by my honorable friend, the environment, for leave to introduce Bill B-40, entitled An Act Requesting the Elimination of Provincial Standardized Testing.
Premier, moved, seconded by the honorable member for Minister of Education, Minister of Environment. Act requesting the elimination of provincial standardized testing. Question of the House, seek members of leave to introduce this bill.
Mr. Speaker, I move that Bill B-40 be now read for a third time.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
Moved and seconded that Bill B40, an act request of elimination of provincial standardized testing, be read for the first time. Read.
B40, an act providing the elimination of provincial standardized testing.
When shall this bill be read a second time?
Now.
I'll call the introducer of the bill for his debate. The Honorable Freeman.
Mr. Speaker, education being one of the government's primary concerns, we have to decide what is best for our students. Under education, there are many categories which need to be addressed. As we try to backtrack to improve on some poor decisions by the former PC government, one issue which is of great importance to us is standardized testing. We believe in the best interest of all Nova Scotians, standardized testing should be eliminated. I believe, Mr. Speaker, that my colleagues and my arguments will establish that these tests don't have much of a purpose. Mr. Speaker, the significance of the district and the school mean the standard score depends on the number of students who wrote the test. For example, in 1992, a social studies test was given to School A and School B. School A consisted of 20 students and B consisted of 100 students. The standard score of 54 would be considered in the average range for School A, but an above average score for School B. 47 was the average for School B and below average for School A. Therefore, we at JCHS, as with other smaller schools in the district, are disadvantaged. Mr. Speaker, one major flaw in this system is that all students write all parts of the test. For example, in 1991, all 320 grade 12 students wrote the physics part of NSAT, although only 94 grade 12 students were taking physics. This is preposterous. Also, Mr. Speaker, not all students reach the same level of achievement at the same time as others. In delivering of these tests to students who are mentally challenged or those with reading disabilities, we are lavishly, in their eyes, wasting their time with such an activity which to them is frustrating and diminishing to their self-esteem. Mr. Speaker, is everyone in this room taking the same route in life? Once again, Mr. Speaker, I ask you, do we even all take the same means to the same destination? So then I ask everyone here, as decision makers, what kind of nation would we have if everyone was going in the same direction? This to a nation which thrives on multiculturalism. Standardized testing measures lower order of thinking skills, but Mr. Speaker fails to measure many of the goals of the school system and sets many limitations towards the measurement of higher order of thinking skills. This means that they don't measure ability in all areas of study, which some are much needed in society today. Mr. Speaker, does it measure one's hard work with their 13 years of schooling? Does it mean one who scores the highest on these tests will have the highest average coming out of grade 12? Mr. Speaker, the answer to these questions is not necessarily. Are they a measurement of school work? No. Isn't school work the learning they can display in real areas of society, not how the students score on standardized tests? Teachers base their curriculum with the tests done, but research reveals the test is not aligned with their future needs of students. If you would like some research, I'll put all the For example, according to curriculum and evaluation standards for School of Mathematics, to become mathematically literate, students must know more than arithmetic. But as research shows, 71% of the items were concerned with arithmetic. This disproportionate emphasis on the arithmetic domain in standardized testing is clearly inconsistent. Educators talk about the importance of higher order of thinking, which differs greatly with what is displayed in the testing. In the math study, as spoken about seconds before, a measly 11% of tests were classified as conceptual, leaving 89% as procedural. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker,
the government has failed to thoroughly examine the many advantages of provincial standardized testing.
You're wrong there.
For students pursuing secondary education, standardized test results provide a basis for planning their future.
How?
Students can recognize their strengths and weaknesses from the test results because the test covers several potential subject areas. These tests are objective and unbiased, and maybe the students are getting that from their teachers.
Not fair way of testing.
In this province, there are many rural schools competing against larger schools. Since every student across the province writes the same test, students can see where they compare with the other students. Students can also use their results to set goals for improvement. Standardized testing can also be useful for the government. The Department of Education has found a strong link between high scores and districts with higher average income levels, more qualified teachers, and larger schools. Thus, results can be used to pinpoint where changes need to be made in the school system, in the teaching, in the teacher training, and even in the methods of teaching. Standardized tests are just one form of testing. They are not meant to replace any other form of testing in the schools. And they don't determine whether a student will graduate. The goal is to measure knowledge and ability to use knowledge in each of the 7 subject areas. If the tests are used accordingly, that goal is achieved. They should also show an overall picture of the education in the province. That is why all students are made to take this test, whether they are enrolled in the subject or not. Writing a standardized test will not change your life, and nobody said that everybody had to take the same road in their life. Teachers are not supposed to teach so that everybody passes the exams, because it's not based on a pass or fail. And teachers know it. I suggest you get your facts straight. Many years ago because of that reason, and that issue has been dealt with. If the government believes that standardized tests are useless, I suggest they study the issue more closely, instead of eliminating one important means of evaluating our education system. Mr. Speaker, this bill should not pass the House.
The Honorable Leader of the New Democratic Party.
Mr. Speaker, with this government proposed bill, an act requesting the elimination of provincial standardized testing, the government has failed to realize the importance of these tests. These tests are an equalizing factor for all our schools. Without some rating of the schools on an equal basis, how will we know if small schools are providing the same education as the city schools? Standardized testing is not something that we can consider a burden or expense when it provides the basis of education to our youth.
Oh, it doesn't provide a basis.
Standardized testing is worth more than it costs when you consider the service it provides.
What service?
Think of how many children will be receiving underrated educations if the equalizing factor is eliminated. Can you afford to risk the livelihood of these children in the school system? Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Minister of the Environment.
Mr. Speaker, the bill proposed today regarding the elimination of provincial standardized testing is a necessity for the welfare of those unable to achieve the proposed standard in Nova Scotia. In summarizing, Mr. Speaker, I would like to point out to you and the rest of us here today the important reasons why this bill must be passed. The Honourable Premier has already stated many problems with the standardized testing issue, and I have yet to review what the Honourable Premier has already said, plus explain to you the many more problems I see in standardized tests. First of all, I would like to define to you all today what Nova Scotia Achievement Tests actually are. According to the Nova Scotia Department of Education, they are said to be a series of tests measuring knowledge and ability to use knowledge in each of 7 subject areas. Well, Mr. Speaker,
standing here now to tell you that these tests are utterly ridiculous and are not acceptable to judging. The following points that I'm about to make explain to you all of the problems with standardized tests. First of all, standardized tests are said to measure merit, particularly where the task is well defined and no alternative exists. While these tests can be compared to a race around a track, although all members or runners start at the same time, they run the same distance. Does it mean that they finish the race at the exact same time? No. Well, why? That's what we're trying to find out at school. Why is it expected that all...
Schools are different. How are they going to find out what they're...
This is not banter about it.
Order, please.
As I was saying, can it be expected that all students reach the same level of achievement at the same time?
Here,
No.
wait a minute.
That's not the point.
Order, please. Order. How can these students be expected to conduct themselves properly if the honorable members don't?
One of the reasons that I feel that the elimination of achievement tests are standardized tests measure lower order thinking skills and basic knowledge, and they don't measure the goals of the school system, which we value. Standardized test questions are all multiple choice. Different people have different skills and learning styles, which means for some people, multiple choice questions may be more difficult to answer. Therefore, these tests have a very limited format. One point I'd like to add to that is that knowledge comes from hard work and study. A monkey could answer those multiple choice questions by guessing, and he could pass. Does he have high academic ability?
Order, please.
He could pass by guessing.
You don't pass.
Order, please. The honorable member will ignore the comment across the board. Order. Order, please.
A Nova Scotia achievement is very valuable, and I'd like to get it across.
If honorable members have a question, they would rise in their place and address the chairs. Otherwise, please refrain from throwing out these rabbit tracks to the speaker. Continue.
The Nova Scotia Achievement Test raw scores are statistically adjusted to give an average standard score of around 50. So regardless of how well students answer the questions in any given year, half of the students will be below and half will be above the 50 percentile mark. Think about it. What kind of sense does this make? They rate the test so that half have to fail and half have to pass.
Order.
What results in
Order, please.
failure? Another reason for elimination, Mr. Speaker, is that as we know, students have different strengths, weaknesses, and interests, and not all can be taking the exact same courses in school. However, when writing standard tests, all students write all parts. Therefore, a student who has never taken a physics course could end up being tested on physics. An example of this is that in 1991, 320 students wrote standardized tests. There was physics on the standardized test. They all had to write the physics part. 94 of those students were taking physics. So there's about 200 other ones not taking physics, and they had to write a test on that. What's the point? Now it's clear that I've summarized and shared with you all the reasons for the great need for the elimination of standardized tests. I hope that everyone in the House today will come to their senses and realize that Nova Scotia achievement tests do absolutely nothing and are a waste of time, energy, and paper. But mainly it's a waste of the educators and our students' time and energy. Instead of losing class time writing of these all-important tests, teachers could be teaching students valuable skills and lessons to guide them through their future years. We all know that academic abilities are not as beneficial as learning practicalities of life. According to schools. Very hard to survive in this world that we live in today.
Order, please. Order.
Yeah, we need those. Mr. Speaker, the last and final point I would like to make is that standardized tests are not only hindering the lives of our Nova Scotia education system, but they are also hindering the lives of our Nova Scotia students. Is this what we want? So take a stand, my honorable friends and colleagues, and see to it today that our already deflating education system is not harmed any longer. And agree to it that the bill number B40, stating an act requesting the elimination of provincial standardized testing, is passed.
I was wondering if the member from...
The honourable member from Boy Central has the floor.
I explained that after
Will the honourable minister of the environment entertain a question?
Well, you've explained to us the problem with the students who have never taken a physics course being tested on this and how it was unfair, but what other ways are there instead of achievement tests? Questions on these tests are things that you should have learned in the statement or a question. You're asking a question and there are answers involved.
The question was asked, yes.
Order, please. The honourable member will please raise the question specifically and precisely.
Well, I'd just like to say, how do you plan to judge a student's academic ability if the bill is not passed?
If the bill is passed.
Yes.
Well, as I already said, that they're used to measure knowledge in seven subject areas. But as I explained in the physics thing, some people weren't even taking physics. So what we could do would the students could pick 7 subjects that they enjoy doing or they feel that they are able to do, and they can.
Order, please.
But they can choose it and be tested on that instead of something that they know nothing about and never, the bill has never been made to standardize.
Order, please.
So give them another form of a different test that isn't standardized.
Still retake there.
Okay, the honourable member from Pregnant, welcome.
I wonder if the member from Craigmore, would it entertain another question?
The honourable member entertain a question.
No, see, we're wasting enough time.
Yeah, that shows, she doesn't believe enough in her politics.
Okay, the honourable member. Yes, the honourable Greenwood.
I do believe that he would like some research that said that the teachers.
Premier, that is not in order at this point in time.
Okay, I'll show you.
The honourable member didn't ask. Yes, Premier, if the honourable member from Pregnant requests to have information tabled, then you may do so, but not until then.
Yeah, I read
We'll ask the honourable, if you take your seat, we'll ask the honourable member from Pregnant are you requesting some further information?
Say yes or no.
We'll table that information with the clerk. Premier,
May I read that out to everyone to say here?
table with the clerk.
It would be the one.
Table with the clerk. Clerk will pass the information on to the honourable member. Are there any more speakers on this bill? The honourable member from Judy North.
Mr. Speaker, I think we've listened to too many assumptions that the government has made about these tests.
Not assumptions, these are.
It is an assumption that the tests are based
Order.
on pass or fail. It is not that.
What you.
It's also an assumption that all students,
Order, please.
the government is just assuming that all students are supposed to achieve the same way. Nobody said that. Obviously, that in any kind of test, someone is going to make, some people are going to be above average, and some people below average.
Yeah.
That's the way it is.
We have to prove that.
Also, don't forget that people are going to school
to achieve that well-rounded education. Standardized tests are just one form of the government of finding out how the education system is doing. The school is there to provide the well-rounded education. Multiple choice is just one form of testing. Students will face many kinds of tests in their life. Multiple choice should be no big challenge.
On the honourable member that have shown considerable leniency in this instance or speech, ordinarily only once to the bill. The Honourable, the Minister of Fisheries, have you spoken on this bill? Have you spoken on this bill? I recognize the Minister of Fisheries.
I have a question for,
Question? Question for? No. Not order. Question to be addressed to the Honourable Minister of the Environment. Troy, the Honourable Member from Troy Trailer Court.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to point out that Honorable Minister of the Environment mentioned that tests show that people have their good points and bad points in subjects. The tests are meant in part to prove which parts they are good at and which they aren't. So it simply shows what their good points are so they can get the secondary training.
What do other tests show?
Order, please. I recognize the Honourable Minister of the Environment, so we close this debate.
Okay, I'd just like to say one thing here, with, it's kind of not a reply, but something I'd like to add. Someone mentioned that that sometimes, okay, first of all, I'd like to say that because of these tests, there are some people that cannot pass them. For example, I have a written report here on a girl, she's mentally handicapped. She's in special education, actually. I'm not sure if she's mentally handicapped or not, but she's in special education. She cannot pass these tests. They will not give her her grade 12 diploma, which means she cannot graduate and get out into the world. She has many people skills. She knows how to communicate and all that stuff, but just because she cannot pass a silly test, she cannot graduate. She cannot pass it.
Documents here. Aren't those reports from the university?
Okay, we're now, please,
Mr. Speaker, one more point I'd like to make. Just because I'm a politician up here saying this, I would like to tell you one other thing. In this report, it says, and I will quote it, many distinguished educators in Canada and the United States have opposed the recent fixation on achievement tests as educationally unsound. It's teachers saying that, not politicians.
All in favor of the bill passing, please raise your right hand. Clerk, please count. Opposed? The bill is passed. Democratic Party, bill 80-25. Next, request changes to funding formula for addresses. The Honourable Member for Craignish, look up.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to move second by my honorable friend from Little Jordan. Bill number 825, entitled an act respecting changes to the funding formula for Inverness County. That's your question.
The Honourable Member for Craignish, look up. Moved, seconded by the Honourable Member for Little Juddy. For leave to introduce the bill entitled an act respecting changes to the funding formula for the Inverness District School Board. At the pleasure of the House, that these members have legally introduced this bill.
Mr. Speaker, I move that bill number 825 be now read the first time.
Moved by the honourable member for Craig Lookoff, seconded by the honourable member for Little Juddy. And said bill be now read the first time. Pleasure of the House to adopt the motion.
Bill number 825 enact requesting changes to the funding formula for the Inverness District Schools.
Then shall this bill be read a second time.
Right now.
Recognize the member for Craig Lookoff.
Mr. Speaker, the present funding formula for schools in Nova Scotia is intolerable for smaller and spread out schools like those within Inverness. The Inverness District is the most spread out district in the province, making it most costly. Money that other schools spend on books and new equipment, we have to spend on transportation of students. How can our kids compete with kids from larger town schools when they're at such a disadvantage and are penalized for where they live? We have a responsibility to see that all kids throughout the province get an equal opportunity for education. This present funding formula doesn't get it. The present formula gives schools money for the number of students they had based on previous years. Small rural schools don't get near as much money, but their expenses are far greater.
Order, please.
Well, that's unfair. Larger town schools don't have to
Remind the honourable member for Craig Lookoff that he does not have any responsibility to respond to questions put to members in their seats. Speaking on the floor is not recognized by the rules of the House. Continue, please.
Small rural schools don't get near as much money, but their expenses are far greater. This doesn't make sense.
Order.
With declining enrollments resulting in even less money to work with, there will definitely be an effect on the quality of education smaller schools can provide. Mr. Speaker, we need to keep the pride of small rural schools alive and keep providing mature students ready for the real world. This bill must be passed.
The honourable member for Upper Long Point.
Mr. Speaker, changes requested for the funding formula for the Inverness County school system. Why do we keep bringing this up time and time again? Do you not realize that Inverness County is receiving the same amount of money per student as all other school districts in the province of Nova Scotia?
Need more.
Order, please. Order, please.
Would it not be unfair to stick on the Inverness County of more money?
Order, please. Order, please.
If we provide more funding in one district, we would have to put out an equal share to all other districts. And I ask you, Mr. Speaker, where would this money come from? Do my honorable colleagues suggest that we raise taxes and cut out a social program so that we can grant this money to the district? Or is one believe people of Nova Scotia are at their limit as far as taxes are concerned?
Here, here.
On par with any graduates in the province for secondary education and jobs. This is demonstrated by people like the Honorable Alan James Catton, a senator from Inverness, Larry Grant, a lawyer formerly from Zurich, Harold and Hugh McCarthy, also lawyers from Glencoe.
Order, please.
Mr. Speaker, there is no one in the world who would rather see the whole province of Nova Scotia as the finest school with the best equipment available than the Liberal. But it all boils down to a matter of dollars and cents. We just don't have any more money. We are in an economic recession, and we all have to make sacrifices. Unfortunately, so do our youth.
The honourable member
I believe that Bill 825, an act requesting change to the funding formula of Inverness County District Schools, should not change, and a change would be totally ridiculous. However, Mr. Speaker, Nova Scotia, for example, has many small schools that spend millions of government money to just the operation of them alone. So, Mr. Speaker, I propose that all small schools were combined to form one large school. It would cost the government less money to operate them than for amalgamation. Mr. Speaker, you also know that the annual enrollment declines at a fast rate. It is said, Mr. Speaker, that between the years 1991 and 1996 indicates a steady decline in student population. A decrease of 300 students is projected. This translates to a loss of approximately $1 million in funding. Mr. Speaker, it is awful how much money our schools require to purchase technology, such as computers, calculators, and other equipment students need to be educated. Mr. Speaker, I beg of you not to pass this bill. So, I believe it would be the best interest of the House if this bill is not passed.
The Honorable Member for Upper Joe Pond. New constituency.
Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, members of the opposition, it is my pleasure to be here today to address the House and dispel some myths concerning the funding of school boards by the government. I would like to remind the opposition that the two main functions of the provincial government with regards to education in this province are, 1, provide funding to the school boards, and 2, set up guidelines for these school boards to operate within. The point in question today is the funding formula used at this time by which the government allocates funds to the individual school boards. In this formula, individual school boards, and therefore schools, are given money on a student ratio basis. The decline of student enrollment is common knowledge, so I would like to point out to the opposition that as enrollment goes down, so does the amount of funding the district's board will get. However, this decrease in funding is offset by the decrease of students. Thus, the schools should be able to support themselves with the funding that is made available to them. The government is not the one who places funding in the different areas of county education. It is the school board. Thus, Mr. Speaker, if the opposition would like more funding, they will have to draw up a plan changing the basics of the funding formula from depending on the number of students to something better. However, there are a few areas I can make some suggestions. Limit teachers on sabbaticals so they can not receive more than 50% of their salary while on leave, thus saving money. Have a look at recreation offices occupying school spaces. These offices use heat, water, and electricity at the school board's expense. Some may pay rent before the rent, and others may not. Possibly, individual school boards could up these offices' rent or ask for a percentage of funds raised by them in return for the use of the space. Another way that money can be saved is through using people inside the district to teach seminars. As it stands, 1 to 4 of those who teach these workshops are from the district, and the other 3 are brought in. By using people from inside the county, travel expenses of those brought in can be cut, thus saving the board money. In closing, Mr. Speaker, I would like to remind all present that to change the funding formula in Inverness County will result in the need to change this formula elsewhere in the province. The opposition, Mr. Speaker, if they believe there is a real need to change this funding formula of the counties in this province, I suggest they come up with something better than the already practical system.
Mr. Speaker, the small community schools are an asset we cannot afford to lose. Not only do they form the central building post for rural communities, but they also allow our rural youth the opportunity to obtain a quality education in a local atmosphere. It was not even a year ago, it was shown that Inverness County in the past, and now in the present, has had one of the lowest rates of failure and dropouts in high school level. And it is well known to everyone that our graduates always do well in further study. We must push our students to potential. We must provide more funding for rural schools so they may remain competitive with the city schools. Mr. Speaker, the bill should be back.
mocking that the liberals are going back to school during the bills, yet they're just doing a school bill right here, right now.
I'd just like to point out that the member who's pregnant looked off that they only needed, this funding only needs to be changed in Inverness County, Inverness District. Although he said it needs to be changed everywhere when he was listening to
I didn't say it only needs to
my
be changed
colleague's
there.
speech.
We said it needed to be
Are there any more speakers on the bill? Are you ready for the question? All in favor, raise your right hand, please. Clerk, please count. All in favor of the bill passing? Opposed? Bill has not passed the House. Last item of the order paper today, Government Bill C-35. The Honorable Minister of Tourism and Culture.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move, seconded by my honorable friend, the Minister of Health, to leave to introduce Bill number C-35, an act entitled Requesting the Elimination of Graduated License.
That's been moved and seconded. Leave be given to introduce a bill entitled an act respecting the elimination of graduated, or requesting the elimination of graduated licensing. It's the pleasure of the House that these members have leave to introduce the bill.
Mr. Speaker, I move that Bill number C-35 be now read at first time.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
Moved by the Minister of Health, seconded by the Minister of, moved by the Minister of Tourism and Culture, seconded by the Minister of Health, that this bill be read at first time. Members agree?
Bill number C-35, an act providing the elimination of graduated license.
When shall this bill be read the second time?
Right now.
Minister of Tourism and Culture.
Mr. Speaker, it's in the best interest of the government and the people that this bill be passed before it's too late. In discussing this, we must first realize that the legal age of maturity for one to possess a driver's license is 16, with parents consent, for a number of years now. And by moving the age up and causing restrictions on these newly licensed drivers, it would be attacking this person's confidence and maturity. The word license refers to permitting or having the right to do something. So when 16-year-olds are informed that they are not allowed to get their license, they are in essence being stripped of their right as citizens. Furthermore, Mr. Speaker, some valid reasons why the age should not be hiked up are, if the age limit is increased to the graduate age, which is 18, it could have serious repercussions, because as everyone is quite aware, graduates are not known for their abstinence from drinking. And if they are introduced to alcohol during the same time or places, who's to say the two won't mix? It's also known, most accidents are involved with automobiles that are caused by drinking and driving. So by having 16-year-olds driving for a number of years, and at least a little further away from the drinking age, they can learn that drinking and driving causes accidents and hefty fines as well, and will cause the drivers to think twice and hopefully reduce accidents. Also, an argument used by most parties for the passing of this bill say that too many accidents occur when minors are at the wheel, when in fact, according to statistics, the largest percentage of accidents are caused by those over the age of 50, and only a minute percentage are caused by those between the ages of 16 and 19. This should be reason enough that the age restrictions should remain the same, or if anything, be reduced, because it is certainly not the teens causing the accidents, but those who wish to increase the age that are. It is also known that those who learn to drive when they turn 16, over a 20-year period, were involved in considerably less accidents as compared to those who learn to drive later in years over that same 20-year period, because they lack the years of experience that the 16-year-olds had. So if you know what's best for the future for our younger generation and the future of highway safety, I'd say look into the future more easily and contented and pass this bill now before it's too late. The future is now. Vote Bill C-35.
should not be passed until it's created. Graduated licensing is a system which places conditions on driving by the beginner driver. As these conditions are gradually removed, exposure to risky situations is gradually phased in. Rather than being exposed to the full range of driving, hazards at once. Rather than being exposed to the full range of driving hazards at once, the novice driver is eased into full, unrestricted driving situations with more confidence and more experience to handle unexpected events. The graduated driver licensing helps to reduce such things as the pain and suffering by people for their loved ones, the high cost of health care and lost income. The leading cause of death and injury to young people in Canada is due to motor vehicle accidents.
Were they driving?
Order, please, order.
Graduated driver licensing offers an effective and affordable means of reducing motor vehicle collisions. One purpose of graduated licensing is to reduce accident involvement of young drivers. Fact, over the last 2 years, more than 10,000 young people have been killed on Canadian highways. In 1989 alone, nearly 1,200 young people lost their lives in traffic crashes in Canada. Fact, according to a Nova Scotia study of pedestrian collisions, the highest percentage, 16.5%, of drivers involved in pedestrian accidents was the 16 to 21-year-old age group. Fact.
Order, please. Order.
Fact. Statistics show that 2 age groups, 16 to 19-year-olds and 20 to 24-year-olds, demonstrated the highest rate of conviction for speeding, as well as the highest rate of involvement in collisions.
The Honorable Minister for Economic Development would like to put a question. Will the Honorable Member entertain a question at this point, or would you prefer to continue your debate?
Prefer to continue. Fact. These age groups are more likely to be at fault in fatal collisions. Fact. Lack of driving experience is a major cause of collisions. With more experience, ability to identify potential hazards is improved. Newly licensed drivers are subject to stricter control. The graduated licensing is a way to reduce some of the facts that I have listed. To Mr. Speaker, because of these reasons which I have listed, I hope to see that this bill will not be passed today.
The honorable member from
Town.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to make some improvements to Nova Scotia. The highest percentage of drivers involved in pedestrian accidents is 16 to 21 years of age group.
Is that a demon?
These are the Nova Scotia government public transportation figures.
The Honorable Member doesn't have to reply to questions put by members in their seats.
In 1991, statistics show that drivers between the ages of 16 and 19 had the highest rate of convictions, as well as the highest rate of involvement in accidents. Furthermore, this age group is more likely to be at fault in fatal collisions. Young drivers aged 16 to 19 years of age make up only 7.2% of the driving population, yet are involved in 11.5% of collisions. They're also involved in 9.7% of fatal collisions. In collisions involving injury, they're overrepresented by a margin of 2 to 1. They represent 7.2% of the driving population, yet are involved in 13.9% of the collisions causing injury. The leading cause of death and injury to young people in Canada is motor vehicle accidents. Last year, 1,200 young Canadians died as a result of motor vehicle accidents. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, I believe that passing the Bill C-35 is more than the elimination of the graduated license to the elimination of the lives of many young Canadians. My party and I won't stand by and watch another 1,200 young Canadians die this year as a result of poor legislation. Mr. Speaker, this bill should definitely not pass the House.
due to the fact of several reasons my honorable colleague has provided to us and a few of my own, such as, first of all, the legal age to acquire a license to drive a motor vehicle is 18 at the moment. However, with
It's 15 with parent consent.
I'm just going to say that. Order is at the age of 16. Order. Since the opposition is saying that drivers age 16, 18 are irresponsible, two stats which have pros and cons, that say that these ages produce the majority part of Nova Scotia highway accidents, should consider the involvement of the parents who permit these irresponsible children, which they might as well call them if this bill is passed, is not passed, to drive. These parents must be irresponsible as well, since they grant their children out on the road perhaps kill someone or themselves. Are the opposition implying that these parents have poor judgment? I think parents of today still teach values and responsibility to young generations. They don't want to see accidents of any sort happen to them. Mr. Speaker, another major reason that should be pointed out to pass this bill is that we are limiting the experience of the driver of tomorrow. Even though under the graduating system, they may drive at age 16 years of age, there are many restrictions that can harm the driver in the long run. They are not allowed to be alive. They are not allowed to drive at night or are not permitted to drive out of a certain zone. Mr. Speaker, do we, the leaders of today, think that the next generation is going to stay at home their entire lives? Stay in at home? I suppose 8:30 is the bedtime. Accidents will still occur due to this lack of experience once they do get their graduating license. Mr. Speaker, we cannot prevent accidents on the road if the road conditions are terrible or weather hampers driving along with poor visibility. But we can prevent an accident by passing this bill. Another aspect that has been dealt with is the fact that the elderly are able to drive without any restrictions, yet have worse vision, poor coordination, and motor skills. Mr. Speaker, the right thing to do with this bill is pass it.
I'd just like to remind the Minister of Tourism and Culture that he said that they aren't letting you drive until they're 18, but that's not true. As you know, they, with the graduated license, they start driving when they are 16 under certain circumstances. And also, Minister of Health, he said that they don't get enough experience. Like I said, they will get enough experience under certain circumstances.
The honourable member, please stand at your place and you're addressing.
I was wondering if the honourable member from the BC Party from Central Long Point would answer my question now.
The honourable member entertains a question at this point in time. The honourable member from Little Gill.
Mr. Speaker, order please. Mr. Speaker, this bill is passed, and we will have drivers on the road with very little experience, driving experience. Because when a person turns 18, you shouldn't have to worry about getting their driver's license. You should be worrying about sending out applications for post-secondary education.
The honourable member for South Gill Central.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Tourism and Culture has many valid points, such as only a minute percentage of accidents occur when minors are at the wheel. I've gone over statistics myself and can verify them.
Order, please.
In that, the highest percentage of automobile accidents are including people over the age of 50.
Members, please not carry on private conversation. If you want to carry on private conversation, you can leave the chamber to do so. Continue, please.
I can also verify that the opposition's points are not valid, and I feel this bill should be passed.
The opposition said 16-year-olds is not mature enough. They also, and they want the age hiked up Speaker, the honorable member from town said that his statistics were derived from the stats provided by our government. But the honorable Minister of Tourism and Culture has already listed the government stats. I ask you, who's more likely to have the correct information?
The Honorable Minister of Economic Development.
Mr. Speaker, if the fees and charges is no to the elimination of graduated licenses, I would like to know how to expect the students to get to their jobs that they were fighting earlier for.
At least the general public, I would go.
Honorable members are now resorting to brief statements and are not likely to debate the bill. Therefore, if there's no one prepared to give substantive speech on the bill at this point, I will call for the question. All in favor of this bill being passed, please raise your right hand. Those opposed? Although technically speaking, this bill will have to be a money bill for government to be paid. I noticed